Hey guys, welcome to DH Fitness. I am very excited. Today I get to be in the kitchen with my good friend Brandon. He's gonna be taking us through an awesome start to finish menu of some delicious items that you might wanna put on the menu for your own household today. So Brandon, tell us what we're making.
What's up, everybody? So listen, my name is Brandon. I'm a chef here in the Silicon Valley. So I just want to get right into it. I don't want to waste your time, but I think there's a big misconception on how easy it really is to cook for yourself, right? So don't be intimidated. It's trial and error. You got to put the foot down on the pedal and get to it. So today, I want to share with you a few meals that I am going to create with just $32, okay? $32. All of this right here, fresh vegetables, right? I'm gonna make 3 salsas, guacamole, I got beans, I got rice, and we're gonna make a quick, easy meal that you can take on the go, and you can change it up so you don't get bored. I mean, you don't have to eat chicken breast, broccoli, and rice all the time. Spice it up. Tortilla Salsa Verde is very low calorie, but also packs a bunch of flavor. Guacamole, really good healthy fats. You can leave the fat out of it. Avocado has really good fats. And Pico de Gallo, right? If you're making guacamole, you might as well make Pico de Gallo. It's the same thing. You literally take the salsa and add it to the guacamole and you're in. Also, chicken breast. I am using chicken breast today, but you can use any type of meat you want, okay? The limit is endless. Anything goes in tacos, trust me.
Cool.
Pork, beef, shrimp, scallops, anything. So with that, let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first things first, I wanna get our meat marinated, and I'm gonna show a good technique on how I like to stay clean and organized anytime I prep meat. So if you're a home cook or if you are an avid amateur chef, whatever the case may be, I suggest investing in a box of gloves, okay? And what I like to do is I like to keep my cutting board separate, the meat cutting board. All right, and then what you wanna do, so you don't want this sliding around, all right, a pro tip is to always have a stable surface. Okay, so these chicken breasts, I think what's really a good idea when you're meal prepping is to think about how you're gonna eat it, right? Because I think what's really important is like when you have meals to go, you need to be able to just re-eat it and eat it as fast as possible, right? So what I like to do anytime I'm making chicken breast is you wanna get it a little bit clean, right? So it's like if you think of the actual chicken breast, it's actually connected like this. All right, so usually, if it's not clean, there's a little cartilage in between the 2 chicken breasts or on the side. So what you wanna do is you wanna clean that part off. Obviously there's none here, so that's good. But then there's also a tender that comes attached. This one has tenders removed, but there's a little piece of cartilage that comes on the actual breast where you don't wanna eat it. That's the chewy part of chicken breast, right? So I always take this out. Trust me, you're not wasting any meat, just get the tendon out of there, okay? It's fine. Okay, then from there, all you're gonna do, you notice how one side of the chicken breast is fat, one side is skinny, right? So when we go to cut this chicken breast, take consideration that you want all the pieces to be the same size, all right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to cut the chicken breast in half. From there, we're gonna make nice little dice. Okay, and then anytime I'm working, I always make sure that I have a container that I'm working into and then I have a trash can close by. So as you can see, I wanted to show that I'm using this little 9x9 cutting board to cut chicken, because then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put this in the dishwasher and start cutting my veg right away on another cutting board. Change the gloves and boom, you're ready to go. All right, so I'm making a small dice. And the reason why I'm doing this is because, you can go and cook the whole chicken breast. There's nothing wrong with that. But I know that this is gonna be delicious and also that it's gonna cook properly. I think this is the big misconception with cooking chicken. Everybody's all scared. I gotta be honest, just get a meat thermometer, okay? Don't waste your time. Spend the $10 on Amazon, okay? Get the meat thermometer. Listen, as a chef in a restaurant, I used to always tell beginner cooks, like, don't guess. When you don't have enough experience,
right,
don't guess. You can invest in a little $10 thermometer that will save your life. Or you can eat dry chicken. Go ahead, DH.
For the thermometer, does that also help with keeping the moisture in chicken breast? Because that's a common concern when people cook.
Yeah.
A chicken breast it's too dry.
Yeah.
It's hard to eat.
So here's the thing. That's a great question, actually. So basically, the internal temp for chicken breast, you want to be 165, right? So literally, I pull it out of the oven at like 160, and then the carryover heat will take it to 165. But if you're like my wife, who doesn't trust that process. Then she takes it to 170 and she's like, forget about it. I don't care. I got small children. I don't want to kill my children. And which that's fine, but she eats, on the drier side. See, for me, I like my chicken breasts like perfectly cooked. And, as a trained professional, I know what that is. See, a lot of people don't know what to look for when they're looking for cooked chicken. So I think what's really important is, listen, if you're a beginner, just get a meat thermometer. It's fine. Nobody's gonna make fun of you. Don't you want to eat moist chicken? Right, okay, so most importantly, after we use chicken, and this is the reason why I suggest having gloves, is you just take the gloves off, okay? You're gonna come over to the sink, wash the knife, cutting board, and then I always like to have little sanitizer wipes. If you don't have to be fancy like this, you can just get a little bleach water. But what's really important is you sanitize the surface. Always, don't trust. Always sanitize the surface, and then wash your hands. And then boom, they're done. It's easy. So I always suggest to cut the meat first, get it out of the way, right? And what we're gonna do is then we'll go into cutting the veg. Okay, that way when we're ready to go, All we have to do is cook the meat and then boom, we can start eating, okay? What I like to do next is, like I said, we're going to, once DH gets ready, we're gonna marinate the meat. All right, so what's really important is I think a lot of home cooks, amateur cooks, they make the mistake of not being organized and diligent and having a plan of the execution of the meal prep. So listen, it's not that big of a deal, but I work from one task to the next just very quickly. Multitasking when you're in the beginning stages of learning how to cook for yourself is very difficult, and honestly, it's just not smart in the beginning. But what you want to do is make sure your total surface is clean and the project that you're working on, you have everything ready. So what I'm doing here is I'm about to marinate the chicken, and I know this is my go-to recipe. Now, I'm not making this a certain, it's not gonna be Spanish, it's not gonna be Italian. This is just the baseline chicken recipe that I like. So if I don't wanna eat it with tacos, I can eat it with rice, I can eat it with vegetables, I can put it on salad, it's no problem. So it really only involves a few things. I like to keep it really simple, some olive oil, okay? And if you're trying to cut down on the fat, you can use whatever you want. But I think another pro tip is some garlic. Instead of like chopping on a board, what I like to do is just use a microplane. Okay, and this is a little pro tip. Use a microplane. And now this does two things. When we go to sear it, it won't burn in the pan because it's so fine. And this also exposes the surface area to the garlic, so it will actually coat the chicken better and marinate it. So if you see, you have minced garlic like right away, immediately.
That's cool.
And listen, don't roll the dice. Once you get down to like, 25% of the clove, just let it go. Not unless you want some finger shavings in your oil.
This is cool. I've never seen this.
Yeah, that's what we're doing
before.
Yeah, so like this is a good tip for like one of my things is being a chef in a restaurant is efficiency. But what I don't like is garlic, onions, and things like that prepped too far in advance. So this is just because it's so basically after 24 hours, the garlic changes flavor, right? You see how like fresh and nice and vibrant that is?
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's awesome. So we get it straight into oil, and that goes with any onions, any garlic. You want to use it right in the moment. You do not want to prep onions or garlic and then leave it in your fridge for 2 days, 3 days, and then use it because you're missing the point. All right, next, what we're gonna do is very simply, we're making a little marinade. So these are some really cool spices that I got from La Sanctuaire, but this is Pimentón de la Vera, okay? Now, I know I didn't pronounce that right, but it's fine. Come at me in the comments. I'm ready.
That smells amazing.
Yeah, so
wow.
So look, I'm a little special, and honestly, the spice company I use, they do a really good job of sourcing out the best spices ever. But this is actually, believe it or not, it's sweet.
Oh,
it's not,
that's cool.
It's not spicy. It's smoky, but it gives a really good flavor to our chicken. Trust me. And then to come in with some heat, we're gonna use some crushed chili. All right.
So how much oil was that roughly?
So I would say this is, I would say less than 1/4 cup.
Okay.
So a little bit less than 1/4 cup, but honestly, I know how much to use for 3 chicken breasts. So I think about 2 tablespoons max for your chicken breast, and you'll see why. Because I don't like to use a bunch of oil when I'm cooking, because like I think if you could limit the amount of oil and salt that you're taking in, it just it really helps out.
Better for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like 4 ingredients?
Yeah.
Oil, garlic.
Yep.
Crushed pepper.
Yes.
And your special
seasoning. And then basically I'm gonna add salt. We're gonna add salt. You don't wanna add salt too early. but you'll see, we'll mix this up. But what I wanna do is I wanna get some herbs in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab, we're gonna use some parsley. I'm actually have DH pick some parsley leaves. So look, all we're gonna do, DH, is do this number right here. Boom.
Just take the leaves
A little bit of stem is totally fine.
Cool.
But just a little bit of leaves. We'll probably need like 3 times this amount.
Okay.
All right.
Oh man, these smell good too.
Yeah. So you know, I think that's another thing. That's a good point, DH. I think with I would say cooking enthusiasts, or if you're new to cooking, you know, using herbs and spices is really going to help you out if you're trying to, you know, be healthy and eat healthy. And let me tell you why, because herbs and spices have very low calories, but a lot of flavor. See, it's when you get into like sauces and butter, you know, and you're compensating for flavor, that's when you kind of run into issues of not on the healthy side.
Right. That's a good way to put it, is that, you know, sauces and butter and things like that could act as a compensation for lack of
flavor. So I highly suggest you get super fragrant spices and use herbs in everything. So depending on which herbs you do and don't like is what you're gonna use. What I like to do is I only like to work on what I'm working on. And I think what's really important, and this is a pro tip for herbs, you know, you wanna make sure you have a sharp knife, right? Make sure you have a sharp knife. And then also what I like to do, and actually I just posted a video on this, but is you get your herbs, and herbs are the same way you treat onions, shallots, garlic. You don't wanna do it too far in advance. So as you can see, I'm just running my knife, but I'm slicing, okay? Slicing through. That's gonna be enough. And then basically I turn it 90 degrees, and then what I'm gonna do is just come through one more time, and boom. And like a lot of people make the mistake of doing this number, and I'm not a big fan of that. You can do whatever you want if you're at your own house, but what I realize is over time is you wanna slice through. If you're looking for super fine chopped, then what you do is you just keep on rotating, but you wanna slice through the herbs. I prefer that method over this method. I notice a lot of chefs and a lot of cooks, they do that method of the rock and chop, but what you end up doing is crushing the herbs, and then, you know, they only have a shelf life of, you know, a few hours. They start to get bruised and wet. And I don't like to cut my herbs too fine. I like to have them nice and, you know, if you can smell it. I mean, it's amazing, and it's just parsley. But this is actually gonna add a lot of flavor to our dish. And then another pro tip, you wanna invest in one of these. So this is actually called a dough card or a bench scraper. You can get it off Amazon for $8. The pro tip here is you wanna use this to get the stuff off the cutting board.
Oh my gosh, that is genius.
Yeah, so what you wanna avoid is doing this with your knife. Okay, you don't want to do that because it's okay. We all do it, but you know, as a chef,
that's why you're the pro.
Yeah, but look, as a chef, I think this is important because you know, at some point you're gonna have to sharpen your knife, and you want to do everything possible to try to maintain the edge. But this little plastic dough card will allow you to get everything on your cutting board, and you're totally fine. All right, next we're gonna get into the chicken. So, what I'm gonna do is here. Actually, you know, DH, I think you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just go ahead and mix that around.
Okay.
Mix it in there. Make love. And yeah, there you go, bro.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. So it's 3 chicken breasts.
Yeah.
With all of this.
Yeah, and so like you could do anything you want with this chicken. Like honestly, you can even take it a step further. You can add lemon juice, lime juice. You can add a little rice wine vinegar. There's, you know, it's limitless. You can do whatever you want with it. But I think it's really good to have a base chicken or a base protein that has a flavor that goes with a lot of things. So that way you don't get bored, right? You can eat it with rice. You can eat it with, you know, sushi, whatever. Sushi bowl, poke bowl. You can do whatever you want. All right, so what we're gonna do while he's mixing up, actually I don't have, this is not regular black peppercorn. This is actually called telly peppercorn, or something like that. I forgot. But it's a different type of exotic peppercorn that I really enjoy.
Wow, that smells,
it's amazing,
that is
right?
super fragrant.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add the salt now because we're gonna cook this within an hour. But usually if you're holding this in your fridge, you know, what I suggest is, you know, like what me and my wife do, you know, throughout the week is we'll get the chicken marinated like this and we'll just hold it in the fridge just like that. We'll put it right back in that container, hold it in the fridge, and we'll cook it as needed. If I have a busy week ahead, that smells delicious, doesn't it?
Oh my, doesn't it? Guys, this smells amazing.
Hey.
Wow, that smells incredible, guys.
Yeah. And yeah, so basically, I mean, look at this. Can we get a close up of that? Look how delicious this looks. Yes.
That is wild. That is wild.
Beautiful. So, after each each task, I always just hit the board real quick, and then I'll give it a little rinse.
Cool.
You just want to make sure you're working with a clean surface at all times to get in the habit of wiping everything down. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Okay, next we are going to make the salsas. Okay, so we have a few salsas here, and I already took the liberty of actually cleaning everything, but what's really important is we have one hot salsa and we have two cold salsas. So in order to save time, what I like to do is put the hot, get the hot salsa cooking, right? That way, while that's cooking, we are cutting the rest. So, DH?
Yes, sir.
If you want to do the honors,
Of course.
and you are gonna make lime juice, but what you're gonna do is you're gonna cut all these limes.
Cool.
Just a cool little trick that I'm gonna let DH do, but for all my peoples at home, basically if you don't have a lime juicer at the house, basically all you're gonna do, okay, cut all the limes in half, and then from there, all you have to do is use a pair of tongs, and you wanna use the leverage to squeeze the juice out.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and so you could do this with your hand if you only have like 2 or 3 limes, but go ahead, try to squeeze it with your hand. You'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's hard, right?
It's hard.
People underestimate how hard it is to get lime juice out. But at least, this one's a little dry, but at least with this leverage, you'll be able to get the maximum. And then once it's softened up a little bit, you can just squeeze with your hand.
Cool.
All right, so next we're gonna get on to our tomatillos, which are really cool. I love this ingredient. Now listen, these are called tomatillos. They usually come with a husk on it. It's actually considered a fruit, believe it or not. So is the tomato, but tomatillos have this wonderful sour flavor, but you don't want to eat them raw, but what you want to do is you want to cook them. You can roast them, you can boil them, you can steam them, whatever you want to do, but I'm going to show you one of my favorite salsas to make. So without further ado, this is a really easy sauce. It literally takes 5 minutes, and I'll show you exactly what we're going to do. And what I like to do is, a little pro tip, is if you noticed how I cut that, a good way to do it if you're ever cutting, you see the core right here? Well, you want to get that part out. But what I realized is working in a restaurant, if you cut around the core first, then you can just cut straight out, right? And then you have the same size tomatoes, as opposed to cutting the core out of all 4 corners when you go to cut the tomatillo. So you can either take out the core first, but if you're like me, you gotta get the process going. So I like the little trick in the beginning. So this involves just a little bit of tomatillo, and then we're gonna do a little white onion. And I think what's really important is if you're at home to make sure you're working, you have your stuff on the cutting board. As you can see, DH and I are sharing the cutting board, but we're both working on one task, and it's really organized, so we don't have to worry about making a huge mess. When you have all of your stuff out and you're trying to cook, it makes things very difficult.
It's a pain.
Yeah.
For sure. I think that's one of the deterrents for people with cooking is the mess.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't want to clean all that. I don't want to prep all that.
So anyway, I was adding 1 onion, about 5 tomatillos, jalapeno, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit this with some salt, and then I'm gonna fill this up with water just to cover, and I'm gonna put it on the stove.
Guys, don't knock on me for only having one job of squeezing limes, and Brandon's done like 4 other things.
That's okay. All right, so you're gonna put that on high, and then boom. Okay, so I think that's really important. When you go grocery shopping, have a plan, okay? Don't go to the grocery store hungry, or else you'll end up, buying things you don't need. Because I make that, especially Costco, man. You can't go into Costco hungry. But anyway, so what I was gonna say is when you're meal prepping, think about what you wanna make. I stick to 2 carbs or 2 simple, whatever it is. So quinoa, rice, potato, 2, so you don't get bored. Then proteins, 2, and then vegetables as many as you want, a variety, because honestly, fruits and vegetables are very important, but it really depends on what type of diet. For me, it's kind of like I don't stay to a strict diet, but I've done the work it takes to learn what I need to do for my body. I think it's just really important. You have to, everybody's different, and everybody's situation is different.
Yeah. This is by no means a recommendation of how you have to eat.
Yeah.
It's just
What I
something
do.
delicious, and as you guys can see, it's relatively very healthy because there's fresh vegetables, fresh herbs.
Yep.
Everything's done clean, no additives.
Yeah.
Simple.
There's one little surprise that I wanted to make which I think is a really good substitute for deep fried corn tortillas. Now listen, I love Tostitos, I love fresh corn tortillas, but I gotta admit, they're most likely always deep fried. And the thing is you can't really bake corn tortillas. So what I like to do is, if you make your own flour tortillas, wonderful. If you're like me, I pick like 3 out of the 5 things I have to make, which is like the salsa, the marinade, and the meat, whatever the case may be. And then I pick one thing that, is ready to go. So being a chef, you come up with different ways on how to prepare things. And I think what's really important is, having a crispy texture or whatever the case may be. And I love tortilla chips, right? But the thing is, deep fried, you gotta pick and choose your battle. So listen, I'm not gonna lie. This is like a mix between pita chips and tortilla chips, right? These are actually flour tortillas that very simply, you would think you'd wanna cut it into a triangle this way, but what I actually recommend is cutting off the edge, cutting off this part, cutting straight down, and then as you can see, what you wanna do from here is make your triangle out of the strip. So you have,
My mind is blown right now.
Yeah, and then you save the little trimmings. You can cook those too. But so basically same thing. So you have your strips here, okay? And then all I do is I even up this side, and then boom, you got tortilla chips. Listen, this is a low-calorie alternative, okay? There's nothing beats regular corn tortilla chips from the taqueria, I know. But trust me, you can't just eat fried food all the time. So I think what's really important is improvising, right? Coming up with something that works for you that actually tastes delicious.
Right.
So DH, if you want to preheat the oven to 350, I'm gonna show you this really easy way to make fresh tortilla chips. What's great about this is you don't really need oil to bake these off. I do, however, suggest it, but I'm gonna show you don't need it, right? So the idea here is you're just baking these off until they're crispy. Now, don't get me wrong, oil does help. So, that's up to you. We're gonna add a little bit of oil and toss them around with a little bit of salt. I think what's really important is also, when you set up your kitchen, if you're new to cooking, if you're just getting started out, it's really important to have a seasoning station and also a utensil bin or utensils. All you need is a good saute pan, a spoon, rubber spatula, a whisk, and a few spoons, and I'm telling you can do a lot. So here's the thing, I'm gonna use just a little bit of oil, and as you can see, I already prepped the aluminum sheet pan, a little bit of salt, okay, and I'm just going to give these a little rub. And this is also another reason why I wear gloves, because the advantage is being able to, right, if I have oil on my hands, I can just switch gloves super efficiently. I think it's important, just get a box, they're less than $5. It's so worth it because, see, boom, now I'm ready to go. But anyway, we're gonna put this into a 350-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. Our next step is gonna be our salsas. Now, we're just gonna make 2 simple salsas. We're gonna make Pico de Gallo and we're gonna make guacamole. What's really important is make the pico first, okay? And then I'm gonna show you a little pro tip, okay? For Pico de Gallo, you're just gonna need red onion, red tomato, jalapeno, and cilantro, okay? These are gonna be your ingredients. Tomatoes, you actually want them to be a little bit underripe. You don't want super soft tomatoes for Pico de Gallo. And look, you can feel this. This is not like a tomato you would slice with burrata. Yeah. All right, you want a 5x6 or a Roma tomato that's a little bit underripe. And then obviously cilantro is very important. Make sure you source really good ingredients, right? So I went to the Mexican Mart to get these, and honestly it was really inexpensive, but they have really good, they have, the cilantro's fresh, the limes are juicy, you know what I'm saying? They just do it better, right? Now, first things first, let's cut the tomatoes. And also I'm going to use this bowl to go into. So I think what's really important is, have a station set up, right? So you have your cutting board, your knife, you have a small knife, and then a couple trays, and then you have somewhere where you're putting your trash. So for Pico de Gallo, there's 2 ways you can do this. I'm gonna show you the way that I like to do it so there's not that much juice, but by all means, you can do whatever you feel. So what I like to do is cut the tomatoes in 4 first, okay? And I think a lot of people make this mistake when they're prepping, they're not focused on one task first, then the other. right? So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna cut all the tomatoes, line them up on one side. All right, so from there, once all of my tomatoes are cut, all right, all I'm gonna do is I'm going to use the outside with just a little bit of the juice, right? A little bit is okay, but you don't want all of it. We call this tomato petals. But honestly, you can use the whole tomato if you want. It's up to you. Like, I wouldn't waste it. But yeah, so I think that's really important too when you're just getting started out, to make sure that when you're working on a task, the things that are working in the background are self-sufficient. You have a timer set and you're not worried about anything burning. As you can see, this is really easy. Like, we're not talking about, you know, taking a spaceship to the moon here. I only spent $32 at this, the Chavez Mart. It was good. But what are some things you like to prep, DH, on your days off?
On our prep days, which are typically Sundays, we like to plan out 3 meals that we're gonna have with leftovers. So my wife Allie, so that she can take it to lunch for lunch to work, and then also so we can have a little bit for dinner the next day. So that's typically what we prepare. Like Brandon was saying, we like to choose 2 to 3 proteins that we're gonna have throughout the week, and anything that is fresh ingredient heavy, prepared to be eaten in the beginning of the week so our vegetables don't go bad. Yeah,
exactly. And you know what is also a good pro tip is, like, what me and my wife do, we leave the vegetables raw sometimes. So we will prep the vegetables. A good example, if I have a head of cauliflower, we will get it into florets, and then what we will do is leave it in the fridge raw. That way, you know, it's good for 7 to 10 days. No worries. So as you see, this is how I'm cutting the tomato. A lot of people cut the tomato like this. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I don't like to do that. I would prefer to have a sharper knife and flip the tomato over. That way it's stable. A lot of people cut it like this, but see, this is what happens. When you go to cut it, you can still do it, but it curls up, and then you gotta do this number, and then plus you're squishing the hell out of it. So it's really down to personal preference, but I like to do it this way. I just feel like it's better to have a sharper knife and be able to, you know, bang it out. Talking about knives, if you're new in the kitchen and you ask a chef what type of knife to get, let me give you a suggestion. I think what's more important than the actual knife is learning how to sharpen it, right? So my suggestion as a chef is to go get the cheapest knife you can find. Faberware, Kiwi from the Asian Mart, that's the first knife I ever had. I think what's important is learning the technique of sharpening first, and then invest in a good knife. And throughout that process, you will learn which knife you like.
Let's take it back a little bit. I just noticed the way you're holding the knife. I think typically, like myself included, I'll hold it this way, and just kind of go to town that way. But I noticed you have the finger on the spine of the knife.
So that's a good point. So there's a few ways you can hold a knife. I actually teach the pinch method, which is like this.
Okay.
So if you're new to culinary, I would teach this way. You know, for me, I've been in the game for a while, so I prefer to hold it like this, depending on the task that I'm doing.
Got it.
You know, I think the thing is with this method is a good starter method, and it's good to learn this method because you have more control over the knife.
Got it.
But you know, for me, it's really boils down to what's comfortable.
And I'm just kind of noticing your posture and kind of, you know, looking at it like from a human performance standpoint. What are some ergonomics that you're trying to maintain when you're cutting? Because you're doing this for hours. You're doing this for hours in a kitchen.
You know what? This is a great point. So listen, I had really bad lower back issues. And I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't until I started CrossFit, and I'm not gonna like rep for him, but until I started working out and taking care of my body. Believe it or not, I used to be 260 pounds. But my go-to tip is when you're prepping like this, squeeze your butt cheeks, and push your hips forward, right? And then, you know, every once in a while, you wanna make sure your shoulders are back as you're looking down, because the thing is you're in a compromised position when you're like this, but I'm telling you right now, if you like,
what Brandon's talking about also from so you can see from the profile, most people will easily get into this position.
Yes.
And then your low back just starts to just crank on you. So what you're saying is squeeze your hips through and pull your shoulders back.
As you're... And then as you're doing it, it's important to, like, for me, especially because my you know, like my knees, I'm getting old, man. I'm 35, you know, my knees a little. I switch legs, so I'll like stand on one leg first, and then I'll, you know, and then my who was it? It was a chiropractor who told me to actually put my foot up on something.
Right.
As you know, you can't get away with that in the kitchen, but I do it when I'm at home. Another pro tip is, I mentioned this before, but like, you don't want to use your knife to scrape into the bowl. This just makes it way more efficient to get your ingredients in a bowl, and then you don't have to worry about scratching your knife this way, right? Because you want to maintain the longevity of your knife. Boom, we have our tomatoes. That's half the battle right there, ladies and gentlemen. So all we're gonna do from here is we are going to cut the onion. So now for pico and guacamole, I don't use that much onion. Even it's for me and the homies right now, so I'm going to use quite a bit, but you gotta know who you're cooking for. So this recipe can vary, add or subtract whatever you want. Like, you know, it's heartbreaking to me when I make salsa for my family because, you know, my wife doesn't do spicy. Kids don't like anything green, they can't do spicy. So basically what they get is sliced tomato.
So what do I do, Brandon, when Allie doesn't like tomatoes or cilantro?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So then you need to switch up the, you gotta switch up the salsa in general.
That's right.
All right.
Don't worry, babe, I got you. We're gonna make you an awesome salsa.
So yeah, I think what's really important is use a timer, especially if you're new in the kitchen, especially if you're cooking something and you're prepping at the same time. What's really important is making sure that you know, you're not a superhero. You can't do everything at once. Even in a real kitchen, I always use timers for everything. And the best part about it is nowadays you can just use Siri. You can say, hey Siri, set a timer, right? Because we just threw those chips in the oven, but I'm just gonna make sure that I don't burn them, right? You're guaranteed, right? That you're not gonna burn them. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the onion. So I highly suggest whenever you're making a salsa, cut it by hand. Do not put this in the food processor. Also for the onion, I like to cut it small. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the inside and I'm going to just cut straight down to strips. And then from there, I'm gonna turn the onion and cut it like this. Now we don't need that much. Also a pro tip, if you didn't see my video on how not to cry, what's really important is you have a really sharp knife and also put your onions in the fridge. If you put them in the fridge, I don't know why, I can't even explain the science behind it, but for some reason you don't cry as much. And it works out really good. I think it slows down the gases releasing or something.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay. And then what I like to do is, if you don't like onions that much, you know, what I like to do is just rinse them in ice cold water, right? So if you rinse them in ice cold water, let them hang out for a little bit, you know, you can mitigate some of that bite. Okay, DH, yes. We're gonna hop on picking some parsley.
All right, let's do it.
Let me grab you a tray.
This is cilantro, right?
Yep. So basically you can just pick them, put them right there, and I'll cut them in a minute. All right, so jalapeno. Listen, highly suggest. You could have a jalapeno that tastes like a freaking green pepper, and then you could also have a jalapeno that will knock your socks off. So you as the person prepping it, you know, especially if you're cooking for somebody else, do yourself a favor, okay? Cut the jalapeno right in half, cut off a little, you know, little hey, how you doing? And taste it. Okay, great. This one is mild, so I'm gonna add everything, seeds and everything, right? But I'm telling you right now, I've tried some jalapeno peppers that have literally destroyed my life, right? So what's really important is if it is super hot, you wanna remove the seeds and also remove most of the ribs, but this one's pretty good, so I'm gonna just go for it.
I think this is another reason why gloves are so important when you're cutting something like this. If you forget and you go to do one of these, forget about it, good night.
So I just grabbed another jalapeno, I'm gonna taste it. Yeah, this one's weak too. So we're gonna go with 2. Now listen, the thing I love about jalapenos, they have such a great flavor. But in order to get the ribs out, I'll show you a little trick. What I do is I just come down the pepper like this and roll it as you go. And you can take the seeds out in one shot.
Wow,
no seeds everywhere. All right, so you take the seeds out, one shot. You can leave everything in. I'm just, you know, I'm extra. You know, there's one more thing we're gonna have to make, and actually through the power of television, I already prepared it. But one of my favorite things to eat is cilantro lime rice. You know, but I gotta admit, I don't like to cook the scallions and cilantro too much. So what I do is I actually make the rice first, keep it room temperature, and then I mix the herbs in, and then when I'm gonna go eat it, I squeeze the lime on it. You know, a lot of times, you know, if it gets too hot, then the herbs just they're not doing their job. I like to eat herbs and scallions like when they're nice and fragrant, because I'm extra, but you don't have to. You can do whatever you want, especially if you're meal prepping. You know, the world is your oyster. I think a lot of people, you know, just do whatever you want. If you're at your own house, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's one of the things I've learned over the years with learning to make healthier foods is it takes time to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's like you can't just pull recipes off the internet and just be like, this is what I'm gonna eat all the time because it's lean.
Yeah.
It's like, well, is that gonna keep you satisfied? Is it gonna actually taste good?
So, you know, DH, you make a great point. And what I like to do is, so hear me out. I have junk food in my house, right? I have kids. You know, they live off of chicken fingers, French fries, and pasta with butter, right? But we also do something, it's called, we get donuts every other week. And, I was so strict on my diet where, my kid would be like, well, Daddy, how come you're not eating the donut? And I'm like, oh, no, I can't eat that. And then it kind of like makes you not a part of the family. You know what I mean? Like you have to, so you know what I do? And this works for me. I'm not giving you health advice, but like what I'll do is I will just remove some of my carbs and some of my fat so I can enjoy a donut with my family in the morning, right? So it's like, that works for me. I'm not saying you have to do that, but you have to figure out what works for you. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she's a champion, okay? You could put a banana split in front of her and she will not touch it, okay? Look, let me show you how to cut herbs real quick. This is a pro tip. I'm gonna post it on my YouTube here pretty shortly. What's really important is roll them up, get them nice and tight, and then from there, you're gonna do what's called a chiffonade. And this is basically slicing through the herbs, creating strips, okay? And then as you get further down, you're just gonna keep on bunching and rolling and bunching and rolling. And then from there, what you wanna do is you wanna turn everything 90 degrees and then continue with that same slicing motion, okay? But if you go through and you're slicing like this, you get a really nice product. All right, so you're gonna make the pico.
Awesome.
You ready? So let's
do it.
Here's a spoon.
Cool.
And we're gonna use some lime juice. Boom.
Wow, that smells so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. Man. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab a little salt. Go ahead, mix that up. That looks great. So what we're gonna do is, before we taste it, I like to let it sit for a few minutes and let it kind of marinate. And then what we'll do is we'll taste it and then re-season. So when I say re-season, that means there's a couple things that I check for. Just salt and acid, right? For Pico de Gallo. All right, cool. Next step is we're gonna make the guacamole.
Yum.
All right, so we have our avocados. Now, this is the reason why I made the guacamole last. Now, pro tip, when you go to the grocery store and you're like, damn, how do I know if the avocado is black in the center? Listen, don't freak out. There's 3 ways to check. One of them, if you just grab the pit and you can remove it really easy, that means it's right. But it's also scary because it could mean that it's also rotten on the inside. But what you wanna do is you wanna feel it. If there's a little bit of resistance, you know it's a good avocado, right? What I like to do, if I buy like 6 or 7 of them, I think what's really important is getting a few, some that are hard and some that are ready to eat. All right, I know this one's a little bit underripe because I just went to go take the pit out and a little bit is stuck. But it's okay, we're just making guacamole, so it's not really that big of a deal. This one, however, is gonna be, oh yeah, this one's ideal. So the pit is nice, came out nice and easy. I knew that one was good. This one too, this one's not 100% ready, but it's totally fine. All right, so there's a few ways you can do this with guacamole. One of the ways is you could just put your knife in here. Now be very careful and don't cut yourself. I'm a trained pro, so I wouldn't suggest this for a beginner, but you can cut little cross hatches like that. Another thing you can do is, this is a good method that I teach anybody that's making a large amount of guacamole. Just cut it into quarters and then go ahead and take the skin off, okay? And then get all of your avocados to this, just like this. For the beginner, we'll do it for the beginner. Cut it into quarters, right? Because you're making guacamole, but if you try to take the skin off like this, you're gonna run into some issues, right? But what I like to do is just boom. And then, of course, after I use my knife, I always get in the habit of wiping it off directly after. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm just gonna take the skin off. Oh, this one wants to come off nice. And listen, if it messes up like that, don't worry about it. You're just making guacamole, okay? We're not taking a spaceship to the moon. It's gonna be okay. Okay, next, let's jump right into it. So, what I like to do is, when you're doing a task, right, you complete the task and then you go on to the next task, right? So I peeled all the avocados, and then next, all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut them like this, okay? Now, a lot of people are weird with their guacamole, but honestly, I hate to say it, but I don't like a super smooth guacamole. I actually like texture. So what I like to do is I like to dice the avocado. And I'll just
love this thing.
Yeah,
it's a game changer.
Listen, if you don't have a dough card, go get it from Amazon right now. It's $8. See, so like you can see how we do one task to the next, and then it just makes it so much more efficient. Okay, and then for this one, I wanted to show this technique. So as you can see, I made some cross hatches in this, and all we're gonna do is you want to scoop out half of the avocado first, okay? And then you come in for the second half. So then you get, it's the same exact thing. It's just a little pro tip if you don't want to go through all that knife work. First things first, we're gonna taste our salsa. Now, if you're cooking for somebody else, usually in a restaurant you have tasting spoons, but when I'm at home, I just do this number right here. So I know it needs a little bit more salt. And then a touch of oil.
What does the oil do?
This is just gonna round out the acidity.
Oh.
So very important. I'm using olive oil. Listen, you could not use oil, but I suggest it to balance out the lime juice. Now, here comes the pro tip for the guacamole. You're gonna laugh, but watch this. Boom, and then a little bit extra cilantro. All right, and then from there, when you're making the guacamole, all you're gonna do is mash up. Now, a wire whisk works a lot better, but oh yeah, that's the move right there. That's the guy. All right, yeah, it's gonna be a lot better. Bro, who doesn't like guacamole?
Oh man,
come on. Okay, perfect. Next, with the magic of TV. So if you look at that, oh, this looks good, doesn't it?
Wow.
Yeah.
That just smells so good, bro.
Yeah, and so like, I think what's important is like, when you make it yourself, you have so much ownership over it, and you feel so good about it.
Right.
Right, like if I wasn't doing this for the TV, it would, you know what I'm saying? I could bang this out in less than a half an hour. And that's why I chose to do it for today. But then boom, look, it's ready. Right there. Okay, so if you weren't here earlier, I made a little bit of salsa verde with tomatillos. I don't know if you can see that, everybody. Boom, boom. But what you want to do is you want to get rid of some of the liquid. Okay, but we're going to reserve the liquid, but you want to save some. Okay, so you want to get rid of most of it. And this goes into the blender. Okay, so this also is really easy actually. And what's really important is get it into a blender. And you're gonna take a handful of cilantro, okay? Drop it right in. And then from there, we're gonna blend. Woo! Yeah, this is righteous right here. Okay, so with salsa verde, what's really important.
Wow, that smells so good.
Is a little bit of the juice.
And is this, I forget, is this spicy?
So we added the jalapeno, but the jalapenos are like green peppers. I think
for the flavor.
Yeah, I think what's really important is notice that this sauce, while it's hot, is gonna taste different than when it's cold. So usually I get everything blended and then I'll just give it a little taste. And okay, great. So we're gonna go a little bit of salt. Okay, maybe a little bit more. And then a little bit of lime juice. All right, because we just want to bring those flavors up before it cools down. And then pro tip, put it right back on the blender. Perfect. Look at that. Homemade salsa verde. Right? It's like, that's so easy, right? You're like, holy shit, I can't believe we just made this. All right, party people. So we have our salsa verde here. Okay. Now listen, you know what else is a good tip? Is also taking this and taking these components and as you're boiling it, you can put your chicken breast in there. You can put your pork in there. You can put your shrimp, you can do whatever you want. And then shred the chicken breast and you can have it in the sauce. That's also another great way to have it. Okay, through the magic of TV, I have already prepared some rice. But one of my favorite things to eat out of all times is cilantro lime rice. But here's the thing, if you make cilantro lime rice and then you put it in your fridge, it's not gonna taste the same when you heat it up the next day. So to avoid that,
if anyone's eaten at Chipotle and saved it and try to eat it again the next day, it's a disaster.
Yeah. So we already have cilantro that we cut from earlier, and then boom, we also have some scallions. Now, a good trick that I like, take in consideration when you're using, I love scallions. It's like my favorite, right? It's not as harsh as an onion. It's way more flavorful than a chive, but just keep in mind, you wanna cut them thin, right? So for this amount of rice, I'm gonna cut off the tops, okay? And I like to sort through and get out like the ones that are kind of off yellow, the ones that don't look alive, right? Scallions are cheap, so like ones that don't look lively, just get rid of them, right? All right, and then from there, peep this out. So I go super fine. All right, and then again, my rule of thumb, any type of scallions, garlic, onion that you're using, you wanna make sure you're going straight into whatever you're using, right? If you're cooking it, get it straight into the pot. Don't prep it in advance, right? You wanna maintain that freshness and that unbelievable texture. But look, we added scallions, and then I'm gonna add some fresh cilantro. So if you just made this rice, you wanna let it kind of cool down a little bit, and then add your aromatics is what I call them.
Is it that the heat from fresh cooked rice is actually gonna do something to change?
Yeah. And like, honestly, I do it this way. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, this rice is a little bit cold now, but you'll notice the texture is gonna be amazing, and the freshness and the vibe, it's more vibrant, you know? And I think that's what I'm looking for when I'm eating food. I think the biggest mistake that a lot of people make is you're not thinking, like, it's so easy to use scallions and cilantro if you're trained. But like, if you don't know, you're either gonna cook it or you're not gonna cut it properly, or, there's a lot of mistakes that can happen. Okay, since we're gonna eat this today, I'm gonna go ahead and add the lime juice. But if you're prepping this at your house, I highly suggest take it to this stage, put it into the fridge, and then as you go throughout the week, you add the acid, right? For 90% of things, I like citrus in the moment, squeezed by hand or squeezed in the moment, not pre-made. All right, so anyway, here we go. Boom, we're gonna add lime juice. Okay, we're gonna mix this up. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, and we're gonna be ready to cook this chicken.
Wow, so protein goes last.
Yeah, I always get the protein marinated and taken care of. Like if it was a whole piece of bird, then I would get it in the oven. But as you can tell, we're really efficient with our time and how much, we're able to accomplish.
And I think one of the main things I'm taking away from our session together today is that your preparation ultimately is going to lead to like the best result.
Yeah.
And I think that can be said for a lot of different aspects of our lives, but especially with fitness too.
Yeah.
If you don't have a plan, you don't know where to put your steps.
Exactly.
You're just constantly trying to redo it, trying to figure it out every single time. So having a plan, working with a professional, discussing what's important to you, and then getting to that result is what ultimately matters.
And you know what? That's a good point, because listen, my goals are not in Sharpie. Let's just get that clear. Like, my goals change, but one thing that doesn't change is health and fitness. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's really important. If you're not, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, my sleep schedule is absolutely trash. And it's because I'm working on a really important goal for myself.
Sure.
But I mean, I have a Whoop band which measures, sleep and all that good stuff. But not to get off a rant, but I think it's really important because, sleep, eating, recovery, and working out is very important in your life. All right, next, let's start cooking this protein and we'll be able to eat more. Okay, there is three recommendations when you're cooking at your house that I have for you. One of them, now you can do whatever you want. I highly suggest if you are looking to minimize your fat in your diet, it's very important to get a nonstick pan, okay? Now this one is actually all-clad. You don't have to spend that much money on getting all-clad, but I would highly suggest getting a nonstick pan that is of high quality. And believe me, it's the best part about it is the cleanup, right? You go to saute something, boom, that's it. Also, cast iron. Cast iron is a good pan as well, but you'll see what we're about to do. So listen, if you are cooking protein, that's all you're doing, especially if it's this small. Do not focus on anything else, right? This is what happens. Like, as you can see, all of our tasks are finished. This is our last thing we have to do. We've made our salsas, we've cooked our tortilla chips. Everything is ready. The last thing we have to do to seal the circle of love is this protein right here, and it's what we're gonna focus on. So before I start cooking, what I wanna do is make sure, all right, so with nonstick, I suggest having a rubber spatula, or they actually make Teflon tongs. So they make tongs like this that actually have Teflon on them, but I think that's really important when you have a Teflon pan. So anyway, we're gonna get right into it. You don't wanna heat up your pan too much. And DH, that's the reason why we put the oil on it already.
Got it.
This chicken's been marinating, so it's nice and lovely. And you'll notice the smell is gonna be amazing. All right, so what's really important is, once you get your chicken down, hey, leave it alone. Don't mess with it. On my stove, I always have a tray. I always have a tray that I can put my utensils on. Also, a spoon bang works really well, like a utensil spoon bang. Next to my stove, I always have a little bit, like a station set up. So I have pepper, salt, sea salt, and then I also have usually olive oil in a sweet bottle. I think what's really important to notice here is, like, I'm not really worried about overcrowding the pan. The reason is because I don't actually want too much color on this at all, because it's you know, the piece of chicken's too small. So basically we're just looking for a fully cooked piece of chicken. But if you wanted color, what I would suggest is only cooking half of this at once. Now, I wanted to show, because a lot of people are like, okay, well, how do I know if it's cooked? What you want to do is, if you're not a trained professional, look, get the damn thermometer. All you have to do is pick a piece of chicken, okay? It measures at 2 points, at the tip and then right here. So all you have to do is stick the tip in and it'll give you a reading. So we know that this chicken is cooked. You see what I'm saying?
Done. No guessing.
So whatever you do, don't go putting this in your fridge right away, because you will bring up the temperature of your fridge, and then it's game over from there. That's a one-way trip to Flavor Town right there. We're just gonna plate this up for the camera, but usually what I would do is, if I was at home, in my meal prep container, I would put the rice and the chicken only. And then on the side, or that day, I would add the salsas. So keep everything separate, and then day of you add. Okay, boom. So
beautiful.
Yeah. You know, listen, you know, the world is your oyster. You can see this is a very healthy, easy to make meal. Like, I mean, DH, you were with me the whole time. We made this start to finish, and it's not rocket science, but you know this is about to slap. All right, so then what I like to do is I like to put the guacamole right on the rice. Okay, and then I'm gonna do the salsa with the pico with the chips. But then what I like to do is just put this salsa right down the center. Best of both worlds. Okay, and then because we're extra, we're gonna go the tortilla chips on the side. Now, corn tortilla chips are wonderful, don't get me wrong, but this is a great alternative if you don't want to eat corn and you don't want them fried. I do not suggest putting corn tortillas in the oven. It just doesn't work out ever. Okay, next, a little salsa here. Oh, look at that.
That looks beautiful.
Come on now. Anytime you want to become a billionaire and pay me to cook for you, I'm here.
Chef.
Hit me up.
Guys, thanks so much for checking out this how to cook a healthy meal from home, fresh vegetables, fresh protein, and something that will leave you feeling good about what you're putting into your body. I want to thank Brandon again for taking the time out and joining us and teaching us from start to finish how to make this awesome meal.
Listen, it was a great time and I'd love to do this. I think the biggest thing about being a chef is teaching my craft and helping the younger generation of chefs come up in the game. And also, with COVID and everything, there's a new breed of home cooks that are doing an excellent job. So listen, you can make this. I'll make sure to post the recipe, but this is so simple. I literally grabbed the ingredients this morning. It was $32. $32, and you can all this food I have, $32. So let's get it.
Thanks for checking us out, guys. We'll see you on the next one soon.